The Master and Margarita is a satirical depiction of Stalin-era Soviet life, and in its own way kind of an attack on the hypocrisy, corruption, and cowardice therein. Put another way, it's about the time when the devil arrives in secular Soviet Russia. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. How's it going? Happy holidays. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Today, I am reviewing Mikhail Bulgakov's The Master and the Margarita. I fucked it up. The Master and Margarita. I always want to say The Margarita. I don't know why. It was a habit I picked up when I first read this book. Beautiful edition, too, from Penguin. A newly revised translation by Richard Pevere and Larissa Volokonsky. This was a very generous gift from my friend and patron Nicholas Carlucci. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it. Hope you and the family are doing well, and happy holidays. A great time to read The Master and Margarita is around Christmas time, which we are quickly heading into, given that it's about Jesus and his altruism and, or you could say, charitability. So if you're looking for a Christmas gift for your loved one, please check out the sponsor of today's video, Nordgreen. Nordgreen is a Danish watchmaker from Copenhagen that sells watches designed by the award-winning Danish artist Jakob Wagner. Nordgreen is a Danish watch brand that cares about people and the environment. There's a real focus on sustainability, ensuring all steps from production to shipping to delivery be sustainable. If you want to do something in the spirit of Christian charity, something I certainly appreciate, for every purchase you make using the code BTF below, a toy shall be donated to a child together with Toys for Tots. So you're not only helping out kids with your purchase, you're voting for a sustainable future with your dollars, and also buying someone a very nice Christmas gift. That's a triple win. And these watches are absolutely fantastic. This is the Pioneer model with the white face, 42mm with the gunmetal color here, and a black mesh strap. The straps are interchangeable as well. There's plenty to choose from. There's leather, there's crocodile leather. They have watches for men and women, so I suggest you check out the site below. They also offer a wide variety of vegan products for sustainability and refurbished products to reduce waste. The packaging, which is very, very cool, I have to say, is very tasteful, is made of upcycled bottles and FSC certified cartons. Yeah, FSC certified paper. And I also sent you this little packet with, you know, some nice things, a little thank you and a manual and all this good stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Nordgreen also has the Giving Back program. They're donating to 3 global NGOs. They also use carbon neutral shipping, planting thousands of trees every year to offset carbon emission generated by the shipping. And if I didn't say so already, the watches look awesome. So, everybody needs a good watch. I'd sincerely appreciate it if you check them out. It's a great product, it's a good cause, and yeah, so thank you. You can still get your order delivered if you place it by December 20th, for all you last-minute shoppers out there. I really like them. I'm pretty taken with them. Get 15% off your order and donate a toy to a kid by using the link below and using the code BTF. You can also learn more by following their Instagram below. Thank you very much, and happy holidays. A viewer named Arnold Carter in the last review left a comment requesting a review of The Master and Margarita, and it got a significant amount of thumbs up, so good timing, man. I don't know. Here you go. There will be some spoilers in here, but the plot is so madcap and colorful, I think you're probably not reading it for the plot, so, but just a warning, you know. The Master and Margarita is a novel by the Russian author Mikhail Bulgakov. He started writing it in the late 20s, burned it, his manuscript in the 30s, started again, finished it in the 40s, died, then it wasn't published uncensored in entirety until the 70s. I think there was a censored version published by his wife in the 60s. So he never got to see its publication. He never had control of the finished product. And by that time, Bulgakov had tragically passed away from a genetic condition that he, in fact, prophesied would kill him, just like it did his father. But for the time he was around, you know, Bulgakov had a very interesting 48 years. He was in World War I, he was a doctor, he specialized in venereology, studying syphilis. I think there's even like a condition or term that's named after him. Got addicted to morphine, kicked morphine, I think cold turkey, wrote plays along with this book, and had his work applauded by Stalin, also had his work banned by Stalin, had a complicated relationship with Stalin, knew him personally, kind of an acquaintance, got a job because he wrote Stalin one day and said, like, he can't work, he can't get anything done, and so Stalin was like, you know, to appease him, you know, kind of gave him this position. Yeah, it's kind of a life of suppressed talent. is my impression, which is sad, you know? It just seems he generally had a hard time getting his work out in the USSR under the oppressive conditions. So this was definitely not published in that era for obvious reasons. The Master and Margarita is a satirical depiction of Stalin-era Soviet life, and in its own way kind of an attack on the hypocrisy, corruption, and cowardice therein. Put another way, it's about the time when the devil arrives in secular Soviet Russia. So one fine hot summer day at Patriarch's Pond, which is in Moscow, and to me it kind of looks like a miniature Central Park, two guys are sitting on a bench. One of them is a poet who writes anti-Christian poetry named Ivan Homeless, as Soviet Stalinist Russia is forced to be secular. The other is an editor and a chairman of a literary board, kind of a corrupt literary board in Moscow, you know, that wields a lot of power, I assume, named Berlioz, like the composer. And that's a reference to the opera that Berlioz, the real composer, did, which he did an adaptation of Faust for the opera. So there's going to be a lot of references to Faust in this book. So these two are talking on a bench when all of a sudden they're greeted by an oddball foreigner who speaks in various accents, has one burning eye, and then the other one is totally dark, kind of like David Bowie, who in fact listed The Master and Margarita as one of his favorite books, and who in fact would have been a terrific pick for the role of this character, this foreigner who comes upon them, in his Thin White Duke era, of course, all the cocaine and suits, naturally. But this stranger who visits these two guys on the bench is named Voland. He's also known, as you could probably guess, I'm sure, as Satan. This is a description of Voland. Two eyes were fixed on Margarita's face, the right one with a golden spark at its bottom, drilling anyone to the bottom of his soul, and the left one empty and black like the narrow eye of a needle, like the entrance to the bottomless well of all darkness and shadow. Voland's face was twisted to one side, the right corner of the mouth drawn down, the high, bald forehead scored by deep wrinkles running parallel to the sharp eyebrows. The skin of Voland's face was as if burned for all eternity by the sun. Not bad. The devil is surprisingly mild in this book, I gotta say. Oddly, David Bowie's character Jareth from Labyrinth, if you ever saw that when you were a kid, is more sinister than Voland, actually. The most sinister thing that Voland does is foretell the almost immediate death of this character Berlioz. But he tells him about his own death. He tells him that it in fact is going to happen, and how it's going to happen, which occurs not long after, and is kind of the inciting incident that sets the events in motion. Berlioz is a reference to the composer who adapted Faust for the opera. There's also a character in this book named Stravinsky, who is the head of a psychiatric hospital. Not sure of the significance, maybe because, the premiere of Rites of Spring caused, a riot, something to do with people going crazy. I have no idea. The Master and Margarita is a satirical, magical realist novel, then just a magical fantasy novel and comedic Faustian homage with dual narratives, one taking place in 1930s Moscow and Soviet Russia, when the devil comes to town to put on a show in the theater in order to expose the hypocrisy of the Muscovites or something. It's really unclear. Meanwhile, we have in this first story, this character named Margarita, who is a bored wealthy housewife, who has an affair with a writer, who's referred to just as the Master, who has written a novel that she thinks is astoundingly good, extraordinary. The novel being all about, and here is the second story, the second of the dual narratives, the cowardice of Pontius Pilate in failing to save Jesus when he's condemned to be crucified back in Jerusalem, way back when. Jesus in this novel is named Yeshua, and Pilate heavily regrets this not only for the rest of his days, but for 2,000 years after, we learn, naturally. So, these two stories switch back and forth, in Moscow and Jerusalem. Pretty compelling. So, back to Margarita. She falls in love with this author, right? And she loves his novel, but he suffers from kind of a mental breakdown, and subsequently this mental illness, though it's never really described in great detail, after his novel is rejected by the corrupt publishers. So then he abandons Margarita and checks himself into a psychiatric hospital. Really quick, a great way to help the show would be to purchase one of these bookmarks, which is just my face here with a little reminder. Voila! They make great gifts for fans of the show. They are $4 each plus shipping. If you want to DM me on Instagram or hit me up via the email below, I'll be happy to send you a quote. And I'm happy to sign them if you like. Thank you so much. Voland and his entourage of kind of goofball sideshow characters, including a large sarcastic black cat that can talk and walk on its hind legs named Behemoth. Aside from stirring up all kinds of mischief around the city, rescue Margarita by turning her into a witch, and then reunite her with her long-lost love, the Master. So there's this kind of irreverent, going against the grain, going against society, adventure, unconditional love story inside here, where, you know, the devil is actually not that bad. He can sort of be used as a source of liberation, is what the novel seems to suggest. So after they turn her into a witch, they all go to Satan's ball, with a bunch of the damned showing up as guests. And eventually, you know, after Margarita is reunited with the Master, they live happily ever after in limbo or hell or something for eternity, not drowning in giant vats of boiling excrement a la Dante, but just kind of, you know, chilling. In between, it's kind of a menagerie of the various, you know, escapades of Satan's entourage, of the various chaotic disasters in the Moscow theater departments. One guy is flung all the way from Moscow to the Russian resort town of Yalta, like very, very far away, and the people in the department start getting these postcards from him, and nobody can figure out how he got there so fast and how these cards are real, and, you know. Another guy's turned into a vampire. I don't know, it's a mess, right? You know? As soon as the vampire thing came in, I just gave up. I relinquish all my, forget it. Meanwhile, everybody is positively astounded by the talking cat. Did I mention the talking cat? It's Daniel Radcliffe's favorite book, as the top blurb on this copy informs us. And all I can say in response is, of course it is. But there are Faustian references everywhere. Margarita even wears a necklace at the ball, I think, with a framed picture of a black poodle, which, if you've read Faust, of course, that is the form in which we first meet Mephistopheles, who is not Satan. He's actually of a lower caste of demon, but there you go. Nevertheless, it's a nice touch. The Master in Margarita has a theatricality that betrays its author's, you know, occupation, which was, you know, at one point a playwright. It is very much written in the manner that one would witness a play. You know, in fact, along with the dark satirical humor, the political undertones, the fantastical locations, and the occasionally body eroticism, Jean-Pierre Jeunet would have done a great job. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, director of Amélie, not Jean Genet. And Roman Polanski, I learned from Wikipedia at one point, had the rights and wrote an adaptation that he said was the best he'd ever written. Peter Greenaway would have done a great job. I mean, can you imagine with Michael Nyman scoring it in the 80s? Oh my God, that would have been a beautiful film. I think Greenaway would have gotten the dark stuff out of it. He would have been able to extract the dark absurdity and all the brass of Nyman, with, you know, all the strings. Oh, yeah, it would have been. But I don't think it's quite dark enough for Greenaway. But if he did a version, that would be, you know, if there were all the directors just lined up and you could vote on one, Greenaway would be the one who would get my vote. I would like to see that film. If any of you have not seen A Zed and Two Knots, you have to watch that movie. That is one of the greatest scores ever written. You know, they did many collaborations together. Anyways, moving on. But yeah, with like some off-kilter accordion in the beginning with after the beheading, you know, prophesied by Satan. Can you imagine? Right after the head goes bouncing down the cobblestones, we would have shot back to Satan sitting in his suit on the park bench in the twilight, smiling to himself with his David Bowie eyes. And he would have stood up and walked away, and the accordion would have kicked in along with the credits. Dun, 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 dun. You know, would have been legendary. But alas, Baz Luhrmann has the rights now. I'm just going to leave that there. Stalin reportedly saw one of his plays, according to Wikipedia, 15 times. Like Stalin was a Bulgakov fan. It's like Hitler liking Kafka. Bulgakov was a playwright. He was a writer, doctor, and also a playwright. He had a very interesting life. You know, there's something that seems to be lost in translation with this book for me. The Russian names were really difficult for me to keep track of, and the constant refrain of devil take him or something like that, some sort of reference to the devil, whether somebody was cursing somebody or whatever, it was stale by the second usage. So after the 50th, you can tell how I felt. There are more beheadings. Did I mention the talking cat? It's like my Iranian patron and friend reading Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, right? I mean, that must have been a truly confounding experience for somebody from Iran. What in God's name is an Iranian citizen going to understand about the subtle, very subtle nuances of the death of the peace and hippie movement and the unfettered, self-destructive, nihilistic comedy of two men outrageously high on a variety of drugs in Las Vegas, Nevada in the mid-70s? I mean, how to begin unpacking that? You know, I mean, It's really one of these you had to have been there things. Does that make this book bad? No. It just makes it very, very distinct to a certain time and place, which is completely unrelatable to me personally. This book is just constantly like, are you entertained? Are you entertained? There is devil in Moscow. There is man with no head. There is talking cat. There is housewife who turns into naked witch and gets revenge on all of the corrupt publishers in Moscow. Huh. Why you not entertained? It's alright, I'm from Latvia, that's close enough. It's like a sad, unfunny clown that shows up in the circus and does really stale tricks that's just like positively begging for your validation, and you're just like clapping like, oh. I don't mean to sound so harsh, as you know, Bulgakov has done something monumental for many people. It's a highly influential book. Big, big deal for a lot of people. But for me, yeah, the clown reference, that's just, that was the entirety of the book from beginning to finish. The whimsicality is so overbearing. It's so all-encompassing and total, right? It's just, any substance or metaphor for me is not worth suffering through it for, at all. I mean, a real, honest, boring read for me. And this was my second time through. I read it once when I was 21 or so, 20 or 21, yeah, like over a decade ago. And that was a way better time to read it. That was a way better time to read it, you know? You might want to consider doing that with books, you know, because it's like old relationships. Like you think like, oh, I really loved her or him. And it's like, you know, if you're single, like, you know, and you're like 20 years after the fact, you try and go revisit that thing. It's not the same. And then you ruin a perfectly good memory, right? Right. So, it's not always good to go and revisit works. In order to enjoy this book, you have to be entertained by the ostentatious fancy-pantsery dandyism of the Wildian variety, the Oscar Wildian variety, not the Baudelairean variety. I learned that there's actually a difference, right? A big difference. You have to find that kind of thing entertaining, right? You have to still be amused. I used to like this kind of stuff when I was like, yeah, like 20. If you're a 20-year-old theater student, you're gonna worship this book. Yeah. The Talking Cat can also ride the tram all by itself. It's not a bad novel, it's certainly highly influential, but I just didn't care for the style, and I think the satirical criticisms are weak and underdeveloped. Nicholas, my friend and patron, has great taste, so it's definitely not him, it's definitely me. I just wasn't amused. I really was not. I think I'm looking forward to reading the people who Bulgakov was very influenced by, which would be Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, and that's more up my alley right now. It's supposed to be one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. For me, but you know, with me, y'all know me, right? And y'all know this is just my opinion. This is not a professional critique or anything like that. I'm a guy on YouTube, right? You know, I didn't like The Great Gatsby for the same reason. Are you amused? No. I'm not amused. Not in the slightest. I'm bored as shit. I will say that something that is very remarkable about it, though, is that it does feel far more modern than the stuff that was written at the same time. That is remarkable. That is incredible. I will say that. You know, especially in my opinion, the story of Jesus and Pontius Pilate. Very, very modern feeling writing. Shockingly so, almost. So, for what it's worth, that is something to that is a reason to read it. Most definitely. Which I want to point out though, you know, in its defense, could very well mean that it's been so influential that reading the original feels like you've seen it 1,000 times. Totally possible. And I have a hunch that it is. And they have a very different writing style and tone than the Moscow section, which is compelling to me. I don't exactly know why, but the feeling is starkly different. Maybe just, you know, the realism of the pilot story. Way more based, you know, like kind of feet on the ground, whereas the other one is sort of like, you know, brooms in the air or what have you. But I thought the novel was a try-hard magic show relying on its stale, redundant, absurd whimsicality. It really was. And it was simply preposterous. A talking cat that shoots a gun. Everybody's like, oh! Really? Soviet Russians? For some reason, this is kind of strange. Of course, I have no way to back this up, but I just have a really hard time believing that Soviet Russians would be freaked out by anything. I don't know. Like, I just picture them as like the toughest people who ever fucking lived. But, you know, that's just me. So while the pilot Jesus story was refreshingly back on solid ground, there was something about it that did feel thin, to me. I'm not exactly sure what. Bulgakov reaches conclusions that I can't. The moral of the story, of which there are plenty, is that cowardice is the worst of all vices because it leads to all the other ones. Okay, sure. Another popular line is from the devil, after the master tells him he burned his manuscript, like Bulgakov did in real life, to which Voland, the devil, replies, "That cannot be. Manuscripts don't burn." Well, they do actually. Nevertheless, Bulgakov got his out, which is wonderful, but he never knew it. And he died before it didn't come out until decades after he died. I'm sure tons have been lost to literary history, so yeah, they burn. I mean, it's not, I think there's a little bit of an idealistic notion. I think there's a lot of idealism in this story. It's idealistic and romantic, but I don't reach the same conclusions about anything that Bulgakov does. Sure, the cowardice thing sounds nice. Is that the truth? I don't know. In fact, there seems to be some large holes in all this moralizing. For example, probably the most outstanding one to me, that I've seen nobody talk about whatsoever, was the fact that in the book, in the novel, Margarita does the exact same thing to her husband, the man she's currently married to, that the master did to her. And that is, abandon her. She married her current husband, and he's provided her with this lavish lifestyle and a bunch of time and freedom. But given the opportunity to become a naked flying witch over Moscow, to go and visit Satan and potentially reunite with her lover who abandoned her, she literally leaves a short, callous note telling her husband to forget her forever, and that's it. No explanation. Nada. I guess we're just supposed to assume that he's a stodgy, workaholic, traditionalist who has abandoned her in this lavish Moscow palace, but the truth is, we're not told if memory serves. I could be wrong, because in fact, if he did love her, she caused the exact same pain to him that was done to her. I found the irony compelling. Bulgakov seems to have not addressed that, but what do I know? But it's a crowd pleaser. Everybody loves the talking cat. The talking cat also smokes and drinks and eats food in a fancy way. It's easily digestible, right? The first and last parts for me were the best. A lot of it could have been chopped in my opinion. There's so many, adventures of Satan's entourage that could just be done away with. A lot of this is not Bulgakov's fault. I mean, he didn't approve of any of the published versions. So, who knows what he would have done with the novel had he lived. Yeah. Anyways, so better than food? Nah, not for me. You may love it though, and more power to you if you do. It was one of Bowie's favorites. Mick Jagger was inspired enough by it to write Sympathy for the Devil, so. I don't even really like that song. It's like one of my least favorite Stones songs. For the record, I wasn't a fan of Faust either. I'm more of a Paradise Lost by Milton or Marriage of Heaven and Hell, William Blake guy, as far as like stories about Satan. But really, there's a certain kind of viewer of this show who will absolutely love this book. So if any of it sounds compelling, I really do highly suggest you try it for yourself. And I suggest that for all the books that I review. Never mind what I say, try them for yourselves. So you should read it. Well, if you're really into Gabrielle Garcia Marquez or Kafka or Angela Carter, I suggest you grab this one immediately. Coffee time. For those of you who are new, I take all of the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video to the show. I place their names in this mason jar. I pull out a name for every review I do, and whoever's name I pull out is sent a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly, and the coffee is delicious. Right now it's from Myanmar. Great coffee. If you would like to get in on that, you can check out all the Patreon reward tiers below. Also listed are all the Patron-only reviews, and if you'd be so kind as to support the show and sign up, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Unfortunately, international shipping is not included. Sorry about that. Best of luck to all the patrons, and thank you very much. Okay, here we go. Jason S. Thank you very much, Jason. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive Mikhail Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita, plus a bag of coffee. Hope you love both. Happy holidays. Thank you. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and always remember, bring a book wherever you go. All right, take care of yourselves. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Ciao.